We're going to go over inspecting and cleaning the transport unit. First thing you want to do is look at this lead screw spindle. It shouldn't have grease or any kind of petroleum-based lubricant on it. WD-40, all that kind of stuff. The problem with that is it should be dry, and it should not have any of that on there. It accumulates dust and dirt. The same with these shafts here. It accumulates dust and dirt, and then it binds up on these bushings on these transport bars, and it creates undue binding on the stepper motors, and it causes premature failure. So if you put your hand on this side of the picker, you should be able to push it and move it without very much trouble. Shouldn't require a lot of pressure to move it. You can also twist this lead screw as well. It should move very easily. So in this case, this one has not been serviced, but it's or rebuilt, but it's in good shape. It's pretty clean. So this one has been maintained properly. It has not had a lot of grease and additives on it that shouldn't have been applied. Once we've determined that we can fairly easily move that, it's not real dirty. The best thing to use for cleaning is just a regular microfiber towel. It does a really good job of cleaning that off. Then, of course, your canned air, or in my case, I've got an electric blower. So you just want to blow it off. Get any dirt and debris off of there that you can see, and then you can just wipe it down with this with a microfiber towel. If it was really greasy, probably going to have to remove the transport module, and that will be in a later video. But once we move, what I like to do is I like to move it out there. Once we get all the dirt off, as long as it's not really greasy. If it's really greasy, then I will take the lubricant, put some on, and then slowly work it back and forth to try to break some of that up. It'll help wipe it up with your microfiber towel. But since this one is the way it should be, and has not had any extra grease or additives put on it, I like to take this applicator, and be careful because that tip will bend very easily, but just in a side-to-side motion, apply light film of this, or bead of this lubricant on this the lead screw. Just squeeze it a little bit and apply some to it, and the same on the other side. I like to put the carriage in the center so that we apply on both sides. So just apply it in a back and forth motion. It'll leave a solid stream, bead behind it. And then just slowly work it back and forth a couple of times. This lubricant will dry towards drying to the touch. It will not leave a sticky residue. It puts a coating on it that helps provide protection against rust and other things, as well as lubrication. But it'll be dry to the touch is the main thing, so that you don't attract dust and dirt. Okay, so once you do that 3 or 4 times, the best position to put the carriage is between the encoder and the card hopper here, because then you have room to extend the carriage and the picker plate. The same thing with that. You're going to want to look at the shafts and this lead screw and determine if it's had a lot of grease on it. You'll see lines of grease on either side where it extends fully and stops, and then it retreats fully and stops. On those edges where it stops and starts, there'll be lines of grease and dirt. But again, this one's very clean, so it's been maintained pretty well. But you would just wipe that off as best you could. Again, if it has a heavy layer of grease or grease on it, if a heavy layer, this again, it'll have to be taken out and we'll have to remove it, and that'll be a later video. But if it's got a light layer, or it feels a little bit greasy to the touch, again, you can apply some of this, work it back and forth. You can either use the lead screw by twisting it, or you can carefully on either side on this flag tab here that goes into the sensor, and then right here next to the this bushing on the shaft, you can push it forward by grabbing on the frame, and then in reverse, these two bushing here, and then your thumb's on the end of the shaft, you can pull it back. And it should move fairly easily as well. But you can move the picker plate back and forth as needed to wipe it down. If it had greasy film on it or whatever, you can apply some of this, work it back and forth several times. It'll help wipe it, clean it up. But just want to do the same thing, side to side. Apply a little bit in front of these bushings and behind it. Apply a thin bead along the shafts, and then on the lead screw, it doesn't require a lot. And then just work it back and forth a couple of times. And you'll notice that it becomes easier once you put that lubricant on there. At this point, you might see where underneath those bushings where it brings out a little bit of dirt. So you can just wipe that off. That's you're going to work some of that out of it, and then you would just repeat, apply a little bit more. And just work it back and forth a couple times. And I like to do that several times until I don't see dirt and debris coming from underneath these. If you start and stop in the same spot every time, you'll see where it collects on the edge where you stopped. And I don't see any more debris. This one, again, it was in pretty good shape. So you want to make sure that you push it in enough to where this plate doesn't extend beyond these bars, otherwise it'll jam into the encoder or the hopper when you attempt to move it. That's basically it on it. If it's clean and in good condition like this one, but you would do the same thing on the transport arm. You'd put some of the lubricant on, work it back and forth, wipe it down, continue to wipe it down until on this lead screw, using a microfiber towel, if there's residue on it that needs to be cleaned off, you can lightly pinch the lead screw, and then while you move the carriage, you can see that it got some off. Some appears to be grease. It didn't appear to be greasy, but that's the best way to clean this lead screw. You got a little bit off there. So anyway, you just keep doing that until it's fairly clean. Wipe this off, and then just apply a light layer until you are satisfied that. Be careful with this ribbon, because that it can kink, and then it'll interfere with the operation as it goes back and forth. Keep applying little light layers of the lubricant and move it back and forth until you got it, fairly clean and shiny. You're not getting a lot of grease off on your rag on both the lead screw and the shaft, and then on the lead screw and the shafts on the carriage on the picker plate here as well. Other things to inspect and to worry that you can deal with while you're here is just a regular Q-tip again, and isopropyl alcohol. When you're dealing with cleaning these sensors, you want to remove about half, maybe a little more, of the cotton swab on the end, and then you can just roll that up, get a little bit of alcohol, and then you can work it between the photocell sensor on the if there's any resistance, remove a little bit more. And then there's that sensor down here as well. On that one, it helps if you kind of bend the Q-tip a little bit, and you can work it in between there. But it's plastic casing on this photocell sensor, so it's not terribly easy, but it's not hard to break it either. So those are the two sensors on that you're going to want to clean as well while you're at it. Potentially other things that you'd want to look at is to make sure that this transport ribbon cable is securely attached, that the sensor is attached here. There should be a couple of zip ties on here to keep it up out of the way, out of the operation of the carriage. There's a zip tie on the back side that goes around this metal. Let me show you closer up. This metal bracket here, there's a zip tie on the back side here, and then there's one on the front here. So if you had to remove it, there's a set screw here on the side, Torx T10. This would come off. We'll go over that in more detail in different videos, but this keeps the ribbon out of the way. This keeps the wires out of the way. So it should be tied together on this end and here. And then the other thing to look at is these wires. You want to make sure that they're off to the side of that sensor. If it goes down in front of it like this, then this tab could catch on it. So make sure that they're off to the side. And again, when you pull, if you pull on these, it'll stress this sensor. So don't want to pull tight on it. Just make sure that those wires are up out of the way, and that this is attached up here, that your ribbon is secure there. You would want to also inspect your belt, your drive belt, right here. And so if you take hold of the lead screw, and you can turn it slowly. You just want to inspect to make sure that there's no fraying, no cracking, and that it's very uncommon for these belts to go bad. I've changed just a handful out of all the machines that I've done, and there's various belts. There's belts on the back side of this. There's belts on the throat gap motor. Throughout the unit there's belts. It's very uncommon for them to fail or to be bad, but you do want to inspect that. Make sure that you don't see any fraying or cracking, just like a serpentine belt on your car. So you do want to inspect that as well. This is actually mounted by two screws on either side. One right here. There's a set screw on this side that there's a hole in the base that it fits into, and then a set screw there, and the same on this side. You got the set screw, and then a single screw here, and that lifts out, and this motor plugs in down here to the power supply for the drive motor. But again, we never want to take anything out that you don't have to. If we can clean this without taking it apart, anytime you take it apart, you run the risk of damaging things such as this ribbon here, the sensors. In the transport, you have this arm the picker pushes against to close the teeth to pick the card. That's what this is for, and that's in the way of this motor, you can see. So it can get a little bit difficult to remove certain parts. If not done correctly, you can damage things. But this on the basics, also just dust. You can wipe off debris on the surface of this picker plate. Again, that oil, the lubricant that we provide will dry to the touch, so that it's not going to attract anything. And this unit is, again, very clean, whatever. So that is going to be the basically what you're going to want to look for on your unit. And for the more advanced stuff, we'll get into that in a later video.